Good morning. Today is Saturday. It is day after Black Friday, so 24th of November. I actually knew the date today. So yesterday I was going to be out, but had some unexpected car trouble that's been since rectified. We're out today. We're in a different area, mainly due to the effort for hunter avoidance, just to avoid any mishaps. And kind of a repeat of where we were on Wednesday, with the exception of we're in a different location and we charged the camera this time, so hopefully it won't die on us. So when I get the other video up, I'll apologize for the abrupt nature of the ending, because camera ran out of juice basically. So let's get going. I'll gather my thoughts for what I might want to discuss today. We'll see what happens and go from there. We're back. So when last we left off, I think we were still beating on the subject of basically Bigfoot-oriented groups becoming inevitably some form of echo chamber, just because one group, where they're given opinion on the subject, has taken the dominant spot in said group. And as a result of that, any and all other groups or mindsets need not apply, because they are, the heretics of the chosen message. And the interesting thing is, and you would probably get a more spirited rebuttal, I'll just use that word, of that theory from the skeptical side of things, because they're not being combative and wrong, they're being skeptical, and that's what they're supposed to do. Why do I say this? Basically because I've been looking at the rhetoric in a particular well-known Facebook group along those lines, and holy crap, have they gotten freaking repetitive. And I need to navigate around this lovely thing. Or is it easier just to go under it? I'm going to say under. That wasn't too bad. Which also increases the less likelihood that I am going to run into anything other than like a bow hunter out here, because shotgun guys are not usually as adventurous. Sorry guys, you're not. That has been my observation over time. But we'll break that down another time. I probably already have. So the message du jour in there is summed up without pointing fingers at individuals. So you don't have to hear the resulting temper tantrums. Is, these are our rules, and let me back up. One moment you have one of them saying, I have no problem if you have a differing opinion than mine, which, where does this go, is complete crap, because the minute you take that disagreement too far, all right, it's not a trail, never mind, they out comes the banhammer after like 2 or 3 suspensions, where they try to break the will of the heretic. And like it or not, debate is part of discussion. And once a group is relegated to the role of multiple, back paddings and that kind of thing, you have your echo chamber. and the quality of conversation goes down the toilet because, frankly, it's all the same over and over and over again, like a mantra. And this group is no less. So on the one hand, they, we don't mind opposing viewpoint. Yeah, you do. You clearly do. But we'll get to another manifestation of that shortly. But the other thing they are, well, the rules say this and the rules say that. And, we're not here to babysit you and placate your point of view. Like, okay, but out of the other end of your orifice, you just said that you don't mind opposing views because some of your more stimulating conversation is born out of debate. Unless you have those same very fragile little egos that you chide other people for having. Not to mention, it looks damn hypocritical. Which it does. So, just saying. Anywho, the reason you hit the echo chamber wall is that you have a differing opinion and all of a sudden you are labeled with the dreaded title of troll because they're making their point, you're making your point, and neither side wants to concede really, or do this amazingly mature thing that people can do called agree to disagree. That notion in the BF world, quite honestly, is virtually non-existent. I'm going to take this on blind faith this gets somewhere because of all this undergrown or overgrown loveliness. Of course, you can go over there too. No, you can't. Pricker, 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 pricker. No. We're not doing that. So hopefully this isn't too... It's frozen, so that'll work in my favor. Let's see. This is a wee bit more the bitch than it was last time I was here. A couple of spots have had trees come down, and obviously this is not a focal point for trail maintenance of any kind. So, make a note. Anyway, it is though, it is a side trail, so there is that. With two side trails off of the side trail, which is sort of where I think we're going to go today and minimize chance of hunter interaction, just because kind of wanting solitude more than a conversation with a friendly hunter who probably is out in the final weeks of deer season trying to bag a trophy buck and all. So we'll leave them to theirs and hopefully vice versa. But that is the unfortunate manifestation of it. They're whiners, and when they're not whiners, they're trolls. Despite the fact, and I invite you, if you care enough to look, don't take my word for it. Go and look for yourself. And you will see every single thing the top offenders of this group do or whine about, they are guilty of doing themselves. And they get real grumpy when you point this out. And we will leave that where it is. What else is going on in the world? Oh yeah, so same group. The claim was made that the group is being under attack by a legion of trolling fans of a particular podcast, but they never actually came out and said what podcast we're talking about, which seems like an odd thing to do. because, and of course, in case anyone's curious, the group in question on Facebook is the Coalition, aka the Trollition, but they neglected to say what podcast. And what I find dubious about this claim is the group in question doesn't really single out any particular podcast for their derision. They actually are, in their own defense, ironic or otherwise, pretty equal opportunity in their critique, if you want to call it that, of those who have differing points of view on the phenomenon that is Sasquatch. So it would be an interesting thing to have more insight into the motivations of one particular podcast with a bug of its wazoo for the postings on a Facebook group that are going to happen whether you like it or not. I've never fully gotten why people go into a group and try to demand respect for the opposing view. It does not come across well. And especially when it comes from the woo crowd, because a lot of what they believe is silly, stupid nonsense. And the best defense I've heard so far, from multiple parties, mind you, is how can you prove it isn't real? The onus is not on those who disagree with it to prove it wrong. You make fantastic claims, you back them up with allegedly fantastic evidence, should you have it. If you don't, well then, yeah. But that is how that game is played. Sorry. The maker of the claim owes the evidence, not the other way around. And there are a lot of people out there, for whatever reason, be it hoaxing, be it they're nuts, and anywhere in between, who try to assign some pretty monkey shit crazy theories to Bigfoot. The favorites are the Portals, who I don't think were ever a thing before Matt Johnson got his head wound and lost a piece of his mind and invented the entire Zorth trilogy of BS books. Actually, all of which are complete crap, and I will not waste money on. So anyone who charges over to say, well, have you read the books? No, nor will I. Because my money has better uses than lining the pockets of a predatory freak of nature who frankly shouldn't have a therapist license. And yes, I went there. You may get over it. The other ones, and for the non-redneck crowd, the word is telepathy, not mind speak. ESP, the reading and projecting of thought from one to another. Scientific evidence of it existing anywhere in the world, zero. Least of all in a hairy monkey-esque person who has not been proven to exist or accepted by mainstream science. This got a lot more overgrown. And now that it's November, this should be clearing out more as an observation. And I have come through here in the summer, and in the summer, this is just downright beastly. Every goddamn plant here is a Little thorny bastard. And I kind of went off trail. Maybe that's why. You thoroughly went off trail. The right answer was the low road. You went the high road. Make a note. Yeah, mind speak is bullshit. Portals, more so. Cloaking is a cop-out. Because cloaking is nothing more, I think I covered this in the last one, than watching a deer blend into a grassy meadow and combining the overall tone of the grass with that of the deer's natural coloring. And that is literally all it is. Nature gave them their gift to blend in. Literally is all it is. And, sorry, there was a thorny looking bastard of a bush I was going to brush up against. So even in here, to make a point with visual aids and this kind of stuff, in broad daylight, you have a roughly 6.5 foot tall, hairy hominid, Bigfoot looking thing. He sees me, he walks back about 30 feet in between those trees, and then arms solidly at his sides, holds still perfectly. He'll blend right in. And unless I'm acutely scanning the freaking the tree line, I probably am going to have trail vision and walk right on by. That, in a nutshell, is what cloaking actually is. Or is invented to cover up for that, because that's no fun. And from there you delve down into the alien connection whatnot, which is a whole different rabbit hole of UFO related whatnot. And a whole different rant. And you get into the Niflheimers, where everything has to be literally applicable to the Bible in some way, shape, or form. Even though I'm pretty sure the word Sasquatch has never been in there even once. Let alone dinosaurs, cavemen, or abortion. Yet these things are things, and we're out there. And some things are out there and occurring, whether you believe in that or not. I'm not touching that with a 10-foot pole, just making a point. But these are the silly things of woo, and if you're going to claim these things are real, evidence, pony it up. Or do the world a favor and shut the F up, because without evidence, it isn't there. So it's kind of ironic that I'm kind of parroting a lot of the coalition's arguments, because I'm not saying they're perceptibly wrong, but the thing is, if you solidly don't believe in something, it seems odd to me that you spend as much time as some of these posters do every day beating on the fact that you disbelieve in this one subject, when they have another group too that goes after the more generic woo, aliens, conspiracy, whatnot, and all that. But it just, when it comes to the person, and I'm not going to get into his name, because then if you mention him, and he can find this in a Google search, and he does look for shit like this, because he is, aside from being a little bit batshit, he also is a wee bit obsessive. If he hears his name, he goes into victim mode, and you have to listen to it for the next week. But we all know who he is. He's the guy that runs the place that looks like Marty Feldman. Yes, I went there. And he, since 2007, has been obsessed with all things Bigfoot, despite the fact he clearly does not believe in the. He'll say he's agnostic. He's not. And don't take his word for it one way or the other. Read the substance of his actual words. That is the telling part of the tale. And a sore spot too, because he gets real grumpy when he has somebody point out the actuality of his belief system. I feel I'm going to take a segment break so I can cover some ground, look around for signs of life in here. Because I'm not actually in this stretch of the woods as often as one might think. And I wish to no longer beat on this subject, because you can for a long time, but you're basically going into the same pattern of repetition he is. So let's do something else. As I hear a couple of distant gunshots indicating deer hunters are out today, down in this area I keep hearing the probable sneaking around of Bambi in some form. No visual, just... So I kind of have orange on. But I'll kind of have to keep my hackles a little more alert, because I thought the hunter was down. When I pulled in, there were two cars in the trailhead. One is a pickup truck, usually denoting a hunter. The other is a normal sedan. It's usually somebody walking their dog or some such. And I know that's stereotyping, but yes, you can usually profile what somebody's out here doing by the nature of the vehicle they leave in the parking lot. If you call a muddy thing next to the road a freaking parking lot. Anyway, I thought he was on the lower end. Now I hear him back there, so there's obviously another one who may have wandered in from the Massachusetts side of things. We are kind of like straddling the state lines right now. To move kind of away from the subject in the previous segment, why is it that people, I think I might have done this in another video. If I do, forgive me, but why is it people can't just do the mature thing and agree to disagree on the various takes on the subject, when the fact of the matter is the mainstream public doesn't take it seriously anyway? The amount of time and energy that is placed in bickering over what effectively is a hunt for the Easter Bunny, if only symbolically, is astounding. Is quite honestly astounding. And they do it with such passion. And the sadder thing, hold on, let me just get back to this. So that's kind of like a philosophical thing. Is like, why can't... Because to a lot of people, the notion of a flesh and blood creature running around right under the nose of the mightiest nation on earth with a population of 300 million people is pretty silly too. Had I not seen what I believe to be one on two different occasions where I'm convinced beyond a shadow of my own doubt, notwithstanding the doubt of others, but I would probably feel exactly the same way. When I first got into the subject, the thought of having one of these things in the relative neighborhood of New England, I met with hard skepticism. It's an interesting subject, but ... But then you get out here, and I've since become more skeptical of wood knocks and the like, because there are so many different things that can be mistaken for wood knocks. But when you first read about these things, and then you're out here and you start hearing things that sound like that, your mind opens up a little bit. On a completely unrelated note, I would also make note that Connecticut is on record for being one of the more haunted states in the Union, and I know for a fact I've probably encountered ghosts, or what could be considered ghostly activity out here, at least twice in my time out here. Although I do not have an expressive interest in that, so I did nothing to pursue it. And as I've mentioned before, almost a year ago to date, minus maybe a month, so 11 months ago, in the area I would have otherwise gone to today, there was a pulsating sound out there that was giving off infrasonic and EMF and EF signatures that you could measure. In Vermont, there was a similar phenomenon going on for 4 years in a localized spot. So the point that I make is there actually is weird shit in the woods. This weird ass funky or lichen or whatever for one right there. But I have encountered, I mean, what the source of these two things were, I don't attribute them to Bigfoot in any way. What are they? I have absolutely no idea. I'm not going to guess without I went out the next day and spent the afternoon there taking measurements and readings and looking like a Star Trek nerd with a freaking tricorder. But if you want to figure out what it is, you gather data and then you crunch said data and try to get to the bottom of it. This is the tedious part of field work, but a necessary part of it. If you're just out there trying to note every little tree break and tree bend and all that, then you're basically a groupie. And somebody who has watched somebody who's watched not finding Bigfoot way too many times. I know there are people out there that adore the show. I always found it to be a freaking repetitive snooze fest myself, whatever, but some of the shit they did was downright irresponsible. When they did the rave in the woods, it's like, do you realize that you could have started a forest fire? How would the show look at that point? They probably didn't even think of that or care. But these are the experts, okay. But with that comes the bad news. Without a body, without a baseline specimen, guess what? There ain't no experts. People can point to Meldrum. Has he produced anything more than I have? In the long term? No. I haven't heard how his condition is. I hope he is doing better and feeling well, but my statement stands. You know? Show me the monkey. If I find the monkey, I'll show you the monkey, but that's how that works. And yes, I know it's more than a monkey. The thing that I'm getting at, though, is the ability to bicker over this subject is astounding. And as much as I am kind of critiquing the coalition specifically, that is a weird ass looking tree, ain't it? I'm going to take a picture of that. When it comes to the Woo critique, they beat on it way too much, but they do have a valid point. If you don't have evidence of what you're claiming, it ain't there. I'm going to take a segment break because I want to do some photography. You guys got some weird scenery in here I'm going to take some pictures of. I'll be back in a bit. Or for just the reason that I want to have the camera rolling. I keep hearing something in the underbrush in my midst, and I just, should something pop out and you have a photo op for some manner of wildlife. I've been lucky here and there in the past. I was in the lower end of this a couple of years ago, and a bear walked across the forest road on the way out. And I happened to get him. But in 2009, there was a moose cow walking up the forest road, and of course, I didn't get a chance to get the camera out before the thing trotted off into the wood line. And those moments, once they're gone, they're gone. But I'm reminded of a time, I don't know why, doing a solid switching of gears on subject matter. There's been a time or two I've been out here, and if I'm making a video or something, I am probably talking to myself. So if you are like a hunter in the midst right now, you're probably going to hear me. And if you do, clearly I'm not Bambi. Clearly I'm a people. And the law very much frowns on you shooting at a people. I've had a time or two when, and they're always shotgun guys. Not that I have a bias. The gun has come up, and they're searching around. One guy saw me before he got a bead on me. The other guy, pretty sure he had a bead on me for at least a few seconds. And when I say that, I mean, after the human recognition was there, he still had a fucking bead on me. I'm just going to make the note. If this is the kind of hunter that you are, drive back to Cabela's, turn in your license. You should not be a hunter. No ifs, no ands, no buts. With bow hunters and guys that have muzzle loaders or similar long guns that are not shotguns, I have never encountered this. I've encountered poachers and not had this. The 2 times it happened, shotgun guys. I'm not saying they're all like that, but if you have ever proven even remotely guilty of that kind of crap judgment, you're probably the same kind of jackass that throws a car battery into a pond to try fish and calls it fishing. Which, by the way, just to help you out, no, it's not. It's also probably really bad for the environment and probably really, really, really illegal. With some massive fines to pay if you don't get arrested should they catch you doing something as stupid as that. But sadly, there are people out there like this. I guess that's all I got for Bigfootery, unless something else rears my head. I actually cheated and looked at my phone. But it's also like struggling to be 30 some odd degrees, so I'm going to give my phone a rest because it's gone from 60% battery to 23 in the cold. And should something happen with the car, given as I did have car trouble yesterday, I'd like to have at least 10% on there to, although I do have a power brick with me for things of this nature, but so I guess it's good to be prepared too. When in doubt, bring a power brick if you need to charge your phone, because there have been times when things have happened. And when I got lost in the other area, which is probably 15 miles in that general direction on the far side of a reservoir and through a bunch of other shit, 3 state forests over, one of them in the Bay State. Luckily, I had enough phone and had enough of a signal that I could keep in sporadic but relatively regular contact with those looking and doing a minor version of search and rescue, because actually, if you recall, we actually found each other. I was not in any medical dire emergency, and by the grace of the Almighty, that we'll take it. But it's just one of those little reminders that a little everyday hike that you thoroughly underestimate could just as easily be the one that bites you in the ass. In that case, I ended up being lost for maybe 2 hours. But the point to be made again is these were woods that I have hiked often, and I was apparently not as familiar with as I would have thought. Live and learn. I also, in my genius, sarcasm very much intended, ended up going down the side of the mountain in the hardest terrain, the shittiest way possible, covering some pretty impressive distance, mind you, but luckily not having anything happen that could have been injurious, because if they had to get off trail to find me, that would not have been like 2 hours. That would have been an overnight ordeal in rain and snow, already soaking wet. That would have been a whole different situation. It wasn't the degree to which I was lost that was the danger of the situation. It was the fact that I didn't know with certainty how long I would get back to my car and running heat, and the fact I had slowly allowed myself to get soaking wet through really shitty planning on my part. And hypothermia was basically the villain of the day. To the point where, I think I probably told this before, but to the point where the state trooper that was organizing the search and rescue, basically, was getting pissed at me because I wouldn't hold still, but he didn't understand that when I started to hold still. I didn't know how long it was going to take them to find me. And I was starting to shiver, which is, those are the precursors to hypothermia. Once that's there, having had it before, you don't want it. I don't know why I told that story or the hunting stories, but I did. I'm going to, again, take a break, start making my way back in the direction I came from, and figure out if there's another area in here I want to check. It's obviously, other than minor hunters, there are more hunters in here today than I really care to deal with, but that being said, I will see what direction I want to go in. There's a couple of other side trails down here you can go. Well, there's a lot of, actually. You could probably spend 2 days in here. Although I have this, you're actually right now, there are 3 different natures of the land. There's a land trust that way. There's public land that way. We're on what they call MDC land, which is, it's the water department equivalent of like BLM land. And in the case of this, you can hike it, you can hunt it, but as far as camping goes, for some reason, I did ask if you could camp out back here. And the gentleman, who is a stater, some kind of an official, responded with a list of applicable fines if I was found out here, which is a pretty hard no. So I'd have to move if I was going to spend the night. I'd have to go over to the state. I mean, on the state land, I'm guessing you're okay. There is no sign over there emphatically saying, "Thou shalt not camp here," but you don't see people doing it, so I don't know. Anyway, I'm going to take a segment break and cover some ground again. We'll be back. So I think that's going to be about it for today. We're about as far into this as we're going to go. So like, subscribe, leave comments, suggestions, and all that good stuff. And we're going to catch you on the next one, and we'll see you there.